Hello everyone, this is Enzo Eigen, the Alliance for Loki, and today I think I have a pretty interesting video, maybe strange, maybe sort of meaningless, but one I'm sort of excited to make, and let me explain sort of what I'm going to do. The idea actually came with talking with Brian on stream today. He said one of the things that he enjoyed about going to For Loki was the fact that we were very transparent, and so like nowadays you can go to say my profile and you can see what my prestige is. And you can just see a lot of data about my profile, where before there was very little of this information was published. Same with Alliance. You know, nowadays we can go and look at our Alliance and see what our prestige is as an Alliance. There it is, 14088. And so you can do this for any Alliance, and it just is much more public than it ever had been when the game was started. And so Brian said, though, before this game was so public with its knowledge, For Loki was often very transparent with our prestige, and I think also any other numbers that would be significant. And so I took that idea and I said, well, let's take a look at all For Loki, and I'm just curious how these numbers sort of are for us as an Alliance together and compare them. And so I'm actually going to look at all this data we can see: total number of heroes, base rating, duel wins, MVPs, quests completed, daily quests completed, quest fights won, PvP fights won, and the highest PvP win streak. I mean, to be honest, most of these seem pretty meaningless, these statistics. I'm not even quite sure, what they will mean, but we'll go sort of explore that together and see if we can have any type of, any type of conclusions or interesting findings. And so here we go. So off we go to, of course, the grand spreadsheet of all the data. So, okay, let me explain real quick where all this information came from before I go into it. So if you go to the Alliance tab, of course, everyone's here in the Alliance. And so I literally went through everyone. Like I'll start with Taters here, our fearless leader. And I can look at his profile and I can get all of this data from his account. So none of this is secret data at all. It's all totally public, totally accessible. Anyone could do this with my Alliance For Loki or their own Alliance. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm like giving away like top secret information, which it's all right there. Okay, so where does this bring us? Well, so the way I've organized this sheet is I have color coded it, conditionally formatted it. So bright green is the highest. And for instance, I've sorted by rating. So you can see Usafa is at the top. And you can see his rating is a nice bright green because he has the highest player rating at 4 million. And then it goes all the way to the bottom, which is bright red. And that's Madhu, who has 2.229 million. And so I did that for each of these. And so the first two trends I'd look at is number of heroes and ratings. And you can see there's a fairly strong correlation between number of heroes. So Usafa, not only does he have the highest player rating, but he also has the most heroes. I'm second in player rating and also second in heroes. I mean, so, the top amount of heroes are relatively the same. Some anomalies as we go farther down where, of course, Madhu, who has the lowest player rating, also has one of the lowest heroes. I mean, it makes sense because, player rating is just like accumulation of points based on the number of heroes you have plus their ranks. Some interesting one, like Karate Mike has a lot of heroes, but he doesn't have too many ratings. So that sort of says to me that he is probably a grinder because he gets a lot of heroes, but he might not be a spender because he doesn't have a whole lot of money, which gives you extra rank up resources. So there's some inferences you can start making. Absolutely, prestige is often linked to number of heroes and the rating. Again, these are both we would say these are like whale scores, like these first three, like the people generally higher up, like Usafa, myself, Clown, Vega, are probably the biggest whales in For Loki, and of course we're near the top of all of these. But it is interesting, like you have people with fairly high ratings, like we take Mad Cat, who actually doesn't have a very high prestige comparatively to the Alliance. It's a little below average. And so not necessarily does a high player rating or high number of heroes. And again, I think someone like Mad Cat, I know he spends a lot of time in the arena, so he has a lot of champions, but probably doesn't spend much in the game. So that means he's not getting the 6 stones like us who are buying them. And it's also vice versa. Just because you have a low player rating, I mean, we have like someone like TJ here who, player rating is fairly low, number of heroes is right around the middle. But I mean, his prestige is in the green, so better than the upper half. Dap. So one funny story about Dap. He's right in the middle of Prestige, but Dap used to be the absolute Prestige king in For Loki. He was always the one who was number one in Prestige. And but yeah, then he took a break from the game. And of course, it's always more difficult to recover when you take a little bit of time away. But yeah, I remember the good old days when I first joined For Loki, and no one could touch Dap's crown. And so these are the first three. I'd call these the whale ratings. And then after that, we have like the war ratings, which is your MVP. And again, it's a very weird way you get MVP. It's usually not given to the best fighter. It's just, there's some algorithm like who explores the most paths, who takes the most fights. And so I could take lots of easy fights and still get MVP. But it does sort of say who is like, who's a good at war. I mean, there is, I'm sure, some correlation between the two. And so it's a pretty interesting scaling. Number one is PMUG with 362. Let's actually sort by this column just so we can see exactly in order without having to dance around so much. So we go Z to A, that's highest to lowest. So yep, so PMUG is absolutely the top, 362. The only ones in the 300s, Psychobilly, PPG, and B Manny are all pretty close. B Manny, probably most of these are from For Loki because he's been in the line just forever. And that's the thing too. Like I'm actually pretty low down, but I'm definitely below average at 69, tied with the amazing Panda Man Pete. But if you look at ours, like I'm sure I got most of mine when I wasn't in For Loki. I would guess I'd be amazed if I had more than 5 in For Loki, to be honest, because I mean, I'm not that great in war comparatively to people in my battle group. So it's a little hard to gauge how good you are in war because I'm sure like a lot of times I was by far the most powerful player in my alliance. And I'm sure I often got MVPs because obviously I was able to do lots of fights. Yes, surprisingly, I was surprised that Brian Grant was last, but then I thought about it a lot. Again, he's in For Loki with amazing warfighters. He often says that, he's like not nearly as good compared to other people in For Loki in his battle group. And so being in there for so long, he hasn't had the chance to get MVPs like, I mean, I don't know if, PMUG was in a good alliance or not, but let's say he was like the most giant player in his alliance. Maybe he had lots of war victories, or maybe he's an incredible war player too, and just has never lost and crushes everything. So it's hard to see, but like people like Buddy Lee I know is really good in his alliance, so he has a good sized number of MVPs. And again, it is this weird statistic. Like one who surprised me too was Vega. Like Vega's in my battle group and he is crushing it in war. Like he takes so many fights and super hard fights too, but he's low on this scale. And so yeah, this one you have to really take with some trepidation because I don't think it really is indicative of how good a war player you are. But as I said, we're gonna make a lot of broad, interesting generalizations just from this data, which probably are very false. But that's the whole fun of this. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, it's hard to say if I can give anything else, any other details from this. Okay, then we come over here to quests completed and daily quest. And I'm sort of wondering if there's a correlation between the two of these. So let's just search or sort this real quick. Like if you're high in one, you're high in another one. Let's do the Z to A again. Okay, so yeah, I guess not surprising. If you've done a lot of quests, you've done a lot of daily quests. I'm trying to think what this means. Like I'm always curious where I am. I'm right in the middle, so very average. And so I do all the EQ quests, of course, and I usually do, I always do Uncollected and Cavalier, and I often do Masters, but not always. And I could see someone like Cam, for instance. I'm going to take Cam just because I know him fairly well. Like I know Cam is a player who doesn't spend a lot of money, so I can imagine that he's doing as many quests, maybe even a heroic, just to continue to get as many resources as possible just by playing the game. Yeah, PWF, surprising. I have no idea why he's done so many. Could be the amount of time he's been in the alliance. I mean, or in the game. You look at someone like Brian Grant and FaZe and B Manny. I think they've all been in the game a long time. So, I've been in the game 2016, I think 2015. So 5 or 6 years, but they might have been in the game 7. So maybe that's just the 2-year difference. This was by far the most surprising. Yusafa, I'm really impressed that he does so many quests. Just because, I always figured, I figured there'd be a correlation between, the people who spend the most money and not playing the game as much, because that's sort of one of the advantages you get from using money is you don't have to play it so much. But it's great to see. I would say that, myself included, I love playing this game. Even though I spend on it, I still want to do every quest I can and sort of obsessive about it. Sort of at the bottom end, I would say, like, Pete is a good example. Again, I know Pete fairly well. I just know him that, he probably plays the game, I'd say, one of the most casually. I mean, between spending most of his time building keyboards and other hobbies and working and being in school, probably doesn't have as much time to grind away at quests. So I can imagine he probably does a Cavalier quest each month, and maybe that's it. And so trying to think if there's any more interesting things in this. That's probably about it. Daily quests. So again, daily quests I see as people who need resources, because even I jump into them every now and then just to use energy. And it's surprising how often I need like tier 2 basic and tier 3 basic just to rank up like 2 and 3 and 4 stars. And so I'm often in there a fair bit, but of course not much compared to other people. And again, I think this is totally people who are getting resources. But again, you take someone like Steve. So like Steve is the top of both. So my conclusion about Steve is that he is, he's a resource. He gets a lot of resources from in-game. Maybe farms a lot of potions. That could be it too. I could see your quests being high, but I don't feel like you usually finish quests to farm potions. So yeah, this one's really hard for me to quite figure out what it means, but interesting. And again, I think the quest fights are pretty related to, what you call it, how many quests and daily quests of course you've done. I think that's a pretty logical correlation. I guess the only thing I would say is this one is really, really interesting, and it's Buddy Lee. So I would say from this, Buddy Lee is an absolute farmer of potions, because that's all I can imagine this. Like, he has not done hardly any daily quests, and he's right in the middle, actually right behind me. Only 7 behind me, buddy. You can catch up if you want. But his quest fights, look at that. He's one of the top of quest fights. So he is a huge potion farmer. That's the absolute conclusion. So I thought that was the most interesting little piece of information that we get from this. Okay, the last one is all about the arena. So who are the arena grinders in For Loki? So let's go ahead and sort this. Data, sort sheets, Z to A. Okay, so Mad Cat, no surprise. No, he's a huge grinder, always grinding. 474,000 PvP fights he's won. Crazy. In second place, also not at all surprising, is the incredible Brian Grant. Obviously, he does a lot of arena. That's how he maintains himself as a free-to-play player in the highest level of alliances. Cam, yep, same thing. Schmergel, I don't know much about Schmergel, but obviously a grinder. He's the one I'm most interested. I would say he's the one I'm concluding plays this game the most, just from everything I see about him. Except he doesn't. Oh, I forgot to talk about duels. We'll look at that in a second. But okay. Yeah, we can just go down and see, there's a pretty big drop off. They sort of have the 400,000s, which there's the 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. And I think these are our grinders, the big time grinders. And then after that, P-Mug is sort of right on the cusp of being a big time grinder. But then there's a pretty big drop off from PWF, I'd say in the 200,000s, through Karate Mikes. I think these are the above average grinders, ones who are probably consistently grinding all the time, trying to get the 1 to 10% rewards consistently, maybe going for champions. And then after that, it's actually the group I'm in, sort of the, a little hint of red maybe, sort of like the average arena players. I play arena almost all the time just because I enjoy it. I like getting the resources from it. I used to grind a lot for champions. And then sort of below that, we have more occasional grinders. And then it's sort of interesting at the very bottom. I mean, if you're below 100,000, I would say you are not interested in arena. And we have PPG with a very not interested at 25,000. I think actually the streak might be a little more indicative of the true, the true champion hunters in arena. Like I could see people grinding for resources, units, battle chips, all those things that help you. But I think it's a streak that definitely will say these are the people who are going after champions. So let's just sort this column and let's take a look. Okay. So not surprising again, Karate Mike. Wow. 1,543, and I know he goes after champions. I'm going to say the same thing for Smurgle. Even though I don't know him very well, I'm going to say he is going after champions. I know Lagacy does. I know Brian does. Mad Cat I know does too. Cam as well. And so these are all the like big time, I would say champion people who are grinding for champions. And that's sort of my conclusion there. I would say anyone, like I know I've grinded for a bunch of champions. My guess is anyone above a streak of 500. So Buddy Lee and above. I'm not sure actually. It'd be interesting to ask Buddy Lee if he's grinding for champions. I would guess he's had. Below 500, it's hard to say, to be honest. Like even a 497 streak seems like that's right around 500, but maybe Lizer and below, I would guess, have not grinded for a champion, only done it once or twice. I'm pretty sure PPG has ever grinded for one as Adam, as Mado, as Usafa, but maybe they have. Yeah, it's just interesting. I mean, you could grind and maybe you grind for one and lost your streak or something like that. So, the last thing I forgot, which I guess I need to look at anyway, is duels. I was thinking about duels because I think this belongs as part of the MVP discussion, which is a war discussion. And so, sorts. So I think if you do a lot of duels, obviously you are one who prepares well for war. So if I was like an alliance leader, I would look at that duel and say, oh, Yusafa, you're in, because I know you're going to train hard for war. Because that's the only reason I can really think you'd have so many duel wins, because there's really not any other reason to have them. Be Manny, huge amounts. So at one point there was a requirement for like dual milestones or something like that. So maybe it's an old remnant from that. PWF could be that too. But I would guess mostly, I think most of my duels are, from preparing for war fights. And so yeah, you can see again, the people in the lead, these are the ones I'd be like, oh man, they prepare well for war. Like Taters, I could see exactly that. Like I know Taters is, absolutely like war is his game, and he is really, really like intense about it. So I am, I'm very sure that, he's done a lot of dueling to prepare himself for fights or to test out other people's fights. Where am I? I was more low than I thought. I thought, I'd be like at least like, because I tend to duel a lot just on stream, just for fun with other people. On the very low end, we have PPG, who apparently hardly ever duels. And again, could also be a function of like the age of your account too. I should ask PPG how old his account is. I'm sure he'll tell me once he sees this video. But I'm also a little surprised. I guess not too much by anyone else I see. It's hard for me again to really think about it. Like Bandaman Pete again, I'm not surprised at all. I figured like he just goes into war and just ghosts his fight, and he's so good with Ghost. Though I know he plays other champions too. I guess I'm a little surprised his duels were low. But yeah, another one. Sorry, I forgot to do it earlier. So those are all my crazy conclusions from this. And again, I have no idea if they're accurate or not. I guess the good thing is that at least hopefully my alliance mates watch this video. I'm sure they'll give me plenty of feedback like, what are you talking about? You were so wrong. But it's like just another piece of data we have in the game. And so the final thing I want to show you before I end this video is I actually took the 3 components of each of these and made ranks for them. So I did the max, the average, and the min. And so here they are. So I called Soup for Loki, the Super Loki. Though this is if you took all of the best of everything, this is what you'd have. So 962 heroes, 4.4 million rating, 14.688 prestige, 4,745 duel wins, 362 MVPs, 22,000 quests completed, 7,000 daily quests, 183,000 quests fights done, 474,000 PvP, and a streak of 1,543. So those are the absolute maximums. I guess if I was like gauging, like, could I be in for Loki? I would look at what I call the norm for Loki, which is like the average. This is just the average of each of these. And so you'd want to have almost 900 champions. You want a rating about 3.2, of course, prestige of 14.088. I mean, that's exactly what it says in our alliance page. We'd be looking for around 2,000 duel wins. Hopefully you have 121 MVP wins. Play the game with 13,000 quests complete and 3,000 daily quests. And you've logged about 120,000 quest fights. We'd want to see some grinding, so 187,000 PVT and at least a streak of 672. That way we know you're invested in resources. Like if you were thinking, well, what is sort of the minimum to get in here? Like what could I have at the very least? And so these are sort of the 4 low key ratings. And so 814 heroes, 2.2 player rating, 13.38 for prestige, 216 duel wins, 28 MVPs, 6,000 quests complete, 1,000 daily quests, 59,000 quest fights, a mere 25,000 PvP fights in arena, and a streak of 62. And so there it is. And so, yeah, I mean, again, this video was totally just I'm gonna try it and see what happens with it. So it's pretty fun to look at these things, and I hope that I don't know, it just made you think about all these things. Again, I'm really question like how useful all this is, and it would be interesting to talk with Kabam or talk with other players first and decide like what would be really cool statistics for me as a summoner to help like showcase what I am as a player. I think my chart does do a pretty good job of labeling like players, like you can see who's played the game long term, who's invested in the game, you know, with some of these statistics. And maybe if you're like a leader of an alliance, you're like, oh, this is pretty cool because, you know, I can sort of do the same for my alliance and now say, oh, okay, you know, we want people with this and this and this because that just shows something about them. I think at the very minimum, you could probably do that. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. And I'm just really curious what you think about all this and how you react and you think if this is any good information or just sort of like silliness, and if my ideas and conclusions are good or if they like way off base. So, well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sure I'll see you again in another video very soon. Bye-bye.